It's a joy to see you all this evening. Especially those I haven't seen in quite a while. Good to have you back. Good to see you coming to achieve your highest potential. That's what Sat Yoga is for. And it's good to see those with the perseverance to keep coming back, to break through all the obstacles of their own ego, their own self-doubt, to break through into victory. You know, SAT is an acronym. Anybody know that? Do you know what SAT stands for? Anyone know? It means the solid abyss of triumph. Triumph is the key word. You'll hear the word triumph often in the chants that Anuttara performs. In Sanskrit, the word is Jaya. And you hear songs that have the words Jaya, Sita, and Govinda, Jaya, Jaya. Jaya means victory or triumph. But what are we victorious over? It's the triumph over Maya, over the delusion of the ego that creates negativity, self-doubt, despair, depression, anxiety, envy, all the agonies of the ego that we all know so well. They don't need to be listed. So all of these need to be triumphed over. But how do we triumph over them? First, we have to become solid, absolutely immovable. At the first stages, our solidity is a solidity of faith in God, faith in the goodness of existence, faith that there is a higher power, faith that there is justice in the world, even though it may seem deferred, faith that there is a supreme self and that the kingdom of heaven is located in the heart, and that we are able to reach that ultimate reality. And we can reach that ultimate reality easily. We don't need to take huge doses of drugs to do it, because at best that will give a very temporary glimpse, and at worst it can shatter the very vehicle of consciousness and bring about a psychotic breakdown rather than the breakthrough that we are seeking. Because it is our natural state to be in bliss. It's not something that requires some superhuman effort. We are superhuman, but we must be solid in that faith. But not just solid, we must be the abyss. The abyss is complete emptiness, complete lack of solidity, infinite spaciousness, infinite openness to possibilities undreamt of in the depths of our being. It's this paradox of solidity with the abyss of emptiness that leads to the triumph. Now, the ego has a fraudulent form of this. It's always oscillating between feeling solidly good and then feeling suddenly falling into a black hole of despair and depression. That's not the abyss we're seeking. That's the abyss of self-doubt that comes from the fact that the ego lacks true being. It lacks the realization of our non-temporal, eternal nature that is the witness to what goes on in this phenomenal flux of becoming. The ego is attached and identified with change, but does not realize that all change depends on the immovable presence of that which is changeless. So our solidity, paradoxically, comes from the abyss of the emptiness that is always transcendent of this world that's apparently filled with matter and energy and movement. But the world is where it is really empty. Because the meaning of this world lies in the beyond, lies in the God consciousness that sees with the higher intelligence all of the truth in the patterns of even the most egoic self-defeat, and can recognize that it is in these seeds of self-defeat that the ultimate victory lies. Through the final disgust with the ego and the entering into the surrender, into the mystery of the emptiness. And it's there that we are filled with the solidity of the Shakti, the power of God, not in the ego. And so the emptiness is the solidity, and the solidity is the emptiness. And it is realization of both as one that leads to the triumph over the agonies, the suffering, the illusions of the ego. And so when we are meditating, we are enacting that triumph by transcending the ego mind that wants to waste its time in chatter and keep on reproducing negative thoughts, or listening to a superego attack, or falling into some despair that one will ever reach transcendence. But all of these thoughts are illusory. And simply by refusing to believe in the negative, to believe in the traumas, to believe in the fear that you may feel, but it is only the ego that's feeling it out of the ignorance of your true nature. Through that triumph of detachment and dispassion and disidentification from Maya, the power that will dissolve that Maya once and for all will be given to us. That is grace. And so in meditation we are learning to receive the grace, to accept it, to recognize it, and to dwell in it, to establish ourselves in the dimension of grace, not in the dimension of suffering. And to learn that we do have power to silence the mind. We do have the power to attune ourselves to the very subtle vibrations of the presence of the Supreme Being within ourselves. We have that power, but the ego will try to divert us from it, or convince us that we're not worthy of it. And the triumph that we must give ourselves is the refusal to believe in the self-image that the ego wants to place on us as a buffer, as a barrier to the bliss that is our true nature. Don't fall for it. Don't settle for any limited kind of power of the lower chakras, because that will always lead to disappointment. And it will fail you in the moments of truth. But the power that comes from surrender of the ego to God will lead to triumph. In every moment of adversity and every test that the world will face us with, you will be fearless. Live in fearlessness. Fearlessness is 90% of grace. And the other 10% is the absolute disintegration of any illusion of separation from God. Give yourself that gift. That's all that the Supreme Being wants to do, is to give you the bliss and the power of fearlessness. To face this play without any sense that you can be harmed by it. And you cannot be harmed because you are not the body, you are not limited, you are not physical, you are not helpless, but you have the supreme power always with you. Free yourself from any kind of fear that the ego labors under, because every fear is a delusion. It has no reality. We are the deathless spirit. Give yourself permission to experience the wonderment of deathlessness, of the nectar of the immortal presence, of the unborn self that is always transcendent of the plane of experience. Know thyself, realize the self, and you will be a blessing to all beings.